to say. I know what you guys are saying, that Andre Ward was special, but he was a special fighter. But I don't know. I think Andre Ward nullified opponents, but the thing is, he did it in a way where he used to grab hold. He used to do a lot of things to nullify guys. I just don't know whether it would work against Canelo. Canelo on the inside, he's very dangerous. He hits you very hard to the body.
I
Could he
agree with
outbox
that.
Canelo from range? Could he out
Yes,
possibly, but I
Imran.
don't know. I don't think it would have been easy.
It
Canelo,
wouldn't
what's
have
the
been
one thing?
easy. It
Yeah,
wouldn't have been easy, but I think Andre Ward would have found a way because he's so clever, his IQ and everything, and he knows what his assets over his opponents, and he knows how to neutralize somebody. Like he knows he's got reach and height over and size over Canelo, so he'd fight that type of fight to frustrate
yeah.
Canelo in a 12 rounder. Because to be
Mm.
let's be real. I mean, Canelo had a very close fight with Golovkin, and I think Andre Ward would have schooled Golovkin, to be honest with you.
Yeah. That style,
That's
Andre Ward's style is tailor made for a guy like Triple G. He would outbox him easily, in my opinion.
At the same time,
mm,
look,
For
Kovalev gave a lot of trouble to Andre Ward, so it's hard to
yeah, well,
say.
no, Kovalev is a
Yeah,
different beast because in his prime, Kovalev had that jab with the length, and not to mention he's bigger than Andre Ward. He wouldn't have that issue with
Definitely.
Triple G.
But at the same time, you're discrediting Golovkin. Golovkin was an animal, man. I
He
reckon he
is,
still
but
is.
the problem with Triple
no,
G
no,
is
no, no, no,
he's
no,
too small.
no, no. Golovkin's an animal, but there's levels in it. Andre Ward's are the highest level in it, and
He is
obviously he
definitely. But
knows.
don't you think Canelo is?
No, Canelo's there as well, but I just think Andre Ward would have beat Golovkin convincingly, not the way
Yeah,
Canelo's
because of
life and
style,
death
I
in it.
reckon you got a point
Yeah,
about that.
sometimes you we've seen inferior fighters beat other fighters based on just style alone. I'm not saying Andre Ward's
Yeah,
an inferior fighter to Triple G, but like you said,
Mm,
styles make fights. That's
true,
why
that's true.
Pacquiao, even though he's better all time than Marquez, that guy gave him trouble for whatever reason.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, Canelo would definitely have to hurt Andre Ward to have any success in that fight.
Yeah.
mm.
So it's interesting.
What's going on,
So
Christian?
What's going on?
All good, man. All good. Sorry about cutting you off, Red Breed. And Jimmy's in the house as well. What do you make of it, Christian? I haven't got your thoughts about Canelo's bringing in Andre Ward to help him prepare for Canelo. What do you think that benefits him?
Of course it does. I mean, I
Mm,
think, and I'm just speculating,
mm,
that Ward is giving him some pointers on how to
mm-hmm,
fight on the inside in the pocket responsibly. And that's what I
mm,
think he's probably, because Kid's already got the skill set to fight from a distance. He's got the range, he's got the footwork, he's got the hand speed, and he's got the jab. The issue is going to be, because sometimes I've noticed in some of his fights towards the second half of the fight, he tends to, when he slows down, he's a little bit irresponsible defensively in the he's irresponsible defensively in the pocket. And I think,
mm,
and Ward was always very good in the pocket defensively. So I think that might be something that he's working with Caleb on.
yep,
mm.
good point.
Canelo and Canelo, I need to ask you because I know you're probably going to disagree with me. Canelo v Andre Ward, Christian, who wins?
Andre Ward.
You don't think Canelo would have beaten Andre Ward?
The difference between Andre Ward, Andre Ward is a type of boxer, a fighter,
Mm,
that he has multiple ways of winning rounds. He's got
mm,
multiple ways of beating you.
mm,
Canelo does not. Canelo
mm,
is come straight forward, pressure, counterfighting in the pocket. That's it.
mm,
Yep.
mm.
What that meant
If
to this game.
when do you think like Andre Ward was on the inside, he was really good, right?
Yes, he was very
Canelo
good
on
on
the
the inside.
inside is Canelo also on the inside loves that type of fight. If they both were fighting on the inside, who do you think would have the better of it? Or do you think Canelo could slow Andre Ward down? Or could Andre Ward use those, holding tactics that he used to do to nullify a lot of opponents? Could he do that
That's
to
exactly.
Canelo?
Ward would definitely do that to frustrate Canelo. He'll tie up his arms, but he won't fight in the pocket constantly. He'll be in and out because Ward knows he has the range. He knows how to use the range when it's to his advantage, and he knows how to use distance behind the jab when he has that advantage. So I would see Ward fighting him not only from a distance, but he would also go in the pocket on occasion. He'll pick and choose. But he's not going to be predictable because I saw a recent breakdown of Billy Joe Saunders against Canelo on Divine Sense Boxing on YouTube. Great breakdown. It was over the weekend. And one of the mistakes that Billy Joe made is that his movement became predictable. He kept moving back, and then when he got pressured, he tried to move towards his right. Canelo eventually stopped him by putting his lead foot outside Billy Joe's lead foot so he couldn't wheel around that way. So he was stuck. He only had two choices. Either he stands his ground, backs up, or he wheels to his left, which is into Canelo's power hand. And, when his movement got predictable, Canelo was able to get to him. That's, eventually. But with Ward's anything but predictable. He's not going to fall into the same pattern where Canelo can figure him out.
But it would. Do you think a lot of people? Do you think that would have been a tough fight for Ward though? Do you think Ward fought anybody on Canelo's level throughout his career?
I think no, and I'll tell you why. But because the thing is, Canelo's never fought someone as short and as small as Canelo.
Ward hasn't fought.
Ward, yes. But Ward fought Kovalev when the guy was at his peak, and he was a bigger man. And Ward managed to beat him. I think Ward will have no problems with Canelo because of the size difference, because he'll know how to use the size against Canelo.
Christian, I want to ask you, I personally had Kovalev winning that first fight. How did you see that first fight?
It was a toss-up.
Yeah,
to me, I could have been a draw. It could have gone either way.
Yeah. I get.
It was really hard for me. It was really hard for me to call that fight. I really couldn't tell who won.
Yeah, I'd agree. It's kind of one of them ones. It's not a robbery, but I think the fair result probably could have been a draw. Really.
Yeah, I think it should have been a draw. To be honest with you, that's what it should have been called a draw.
Yeah. I'd have to agree. I'd have to agree with you. Adam, what do you make of Canelo and Andre Ward? Who do you think fight if they were to fight?
Canelo, but it's a hard fight. I reckon Ward would be schooling him really, but it takes one punch to change the fight. I reckon in the later rounds, Canelo would hit him to the body or even to the head. I reckon Canelo would get him. Just like the Kovalev fight. I know it's not the same Kovalev, don't get me wrong, but Kovalev was schooling Canelo, but it took that one punch, it changed the fight. And I reckon that could be the case in that fight, but it's a hard one because Ward is much more clever and stuff, so much better boxer, but I don't know. He just finds a way. He keeps grafting, and he don't. One thing about Canelo is even in the late rounds, he maintains his power a bit. So hard to say.
Yes, it could have been a great fight. I would have loved to see that. The problem is Christian, rare breed. I'd love to know your opinion. That Canelo doesn't really have in the 168 division. He doesn't really have an Andre Ward, and you could say Andre Ward didn't really have at 168 a Canelo. There's a lot. These guys are great fighters, but unfortunately, they're not really got the competition. I know, Christian, you seem to think Caleb Plant could beat Canelo. But if Canelo does beat Caleb Plant, it's going to be kind of like, well, the competition at 168. Because you say all the time, the reason why Canelo's fighting at 168 is because there's not great competition there, right? You say it all the time.
It's a weak division. It is a weak division.
That's why he moved up.
Yeah. So do you think at the competition at 160 with Charlo and Andrade is tougher?
Of course. I mean, he ducked. Listen, I mean, I've said this before. He ducked undisputed with Demetrius Andrade for the obvious reason that styles make fights. And Andrade is a more difficult fight for Canelo than Plant is.
Think about it. His reasoning for saying he doesn't want to fight Andre is because he's a terrible fighter. What does that mean? Yildirim some great fighter, or even Callum Smith? No offense to Cal Smith. I know he's a fellow Brit, but he's not some world beater either. So I don't see why he won't fight
Nah,
him.
I don't agree with that at all. Who has Andrade for? He
Okay,
Okay,
ducked
let's
Billy
not
Joe
talk about
Sodas.
resume, folks. I mean,
come on.
let's not talk about resume.
No,
We all
but you
know
lot are
that
saying that
everyone's been
Canelo ain't
talking.
fought no one. Who has Andrade for? Canelo's for Billy Joe. Billy Joe with school Andrade, I reckon.
Who
Easy.
said?
No,
Wait, who said Canelo hasn't fought him?
You guys, because you're saying that Canelo ducked Andrade when Andrade's been ducking everyone else in because he ain't fought no
He
one.
he literally said, "I'm not gonna fight you because you're a terrible fighter."
And he's telling the truth because look at the competition Canelo's fought.
But
He's
he's
gone up
willing to
for
fight you,
Kovalev.
bro.
Yeah, one
He's
fighter.
willing
You're
to
saying
fight you,
Yildirim,
bro.
Billy Joe. Billy Joe's been
Really?
unbeaten before that. And I'm sure Billy Joe's meant to fight Andrade. And that would have been a really close fight.
Or any of those guys going to the Hall of Fame?
Probably not. But who has Andrade fought that goes into the Hall of Fame? Does forget anything else?
Well,
Does
these people
Andrade
won't
go into
fight
the
him.
Hall of Fame?
listen.
Okay.
Let me ask you this then:
Go on.
if Andrew's such a terrible fighter, why
Yeah.
didn't he fight it for undisputed when he had one belt left to go? That's what I want to
Right.
know.
Yeah, but
Thank you.
even that, you're
No,
saying
no, I
that.
want
But
an answer.
1 minute,
Why?
he might beat
Why didn't he
Caleb
fight
Plant
Andre for undisputed? I just want a simple answer.
because he did
Why?
to. He actually didn't need to. Because if you look at it, he beat Billy Joe just now. Who has Andrade even fought? And another thing is,
Christian.
he might beat Caleb Plant and then fight Andrade anyway. So
Let's go back down
regardless,
memory lane. Let's go
Christian,
back down memory lane.
go on.
Yeah,
did you
How
notice?
when
come
Did you
Andrade
know?
hasn't fought
Canelo
Golovkin,
fought
by the way?
Jacobs,
Yeah,
when
Guys,
Canelo
let
fought
Christian finish his
Jacobs,
point.
yeah.
when Canelo fought Jacobs and won in the post press conference, and you can pull it up on YouTube, he said in Spanish, "Yo quiero los cuatro títulos." Translation: I want all the belts at 160. I want to be undisputed. And then he changed course. And who had the last belt? Andrade.
Yep.
That's my
Facts.
case.
So you're saying, so 1 minute. So in them terms, you're saying that Canelo's scared of Andrade. Come
I
on, you're
didn't
having a
say
laugh.
that.
Because you're saying he's
No.
ducking him, so he's obviously scared of losing against him.
No. This is what I'm saying.
Go
Boxers
on.
are not scared of other boxers. Every guy who steps in the ring,
100%.
they're not afraid. What Canelo is afraid of is losing because he doesn't want to lose the perception that he is this pound for pound king, that he is the best fighter in the world. He doesn't want to lose that perception. That is what he's afraid of.
I don't think Canelo thinks he'll lose against Andrade. I think Canelo thinks he'll knock Andrade out, personally. Even if you look at the
Then
post
why won't
fight,
he fight him?
because you don't need to. Andrade is chatting a lot as well,
You had
really,
more
because he has a.
confidence in
Okay,
Canelo
okay.
than Canelo has in himself.
Let's listen to that. Okay, how come Andrade ain't for Golovkin? Because we all know Golovkin ain't scared of fighting no one. So
Wait a minute. Andrade wants to fight with Golovkin. It's Golovkin who's ducking him for
says who?
unification.
You're looking at the media. Says you. I don't believe that.
Daz, have you read the reports over the past couple of months? Daz has been trying to push Golovkin to fight Andrade for unification. Golovkin says no.
I don't believe that at all. Personally, I don't.
Okay, well, hey, you go look it up.
Because
Google
Golovkin's
it.
got
Here's
nowhere
the
to
thing,
go,
here's the
kid.
thing.
Why would
You
they
know
take
Golovkin,
the
you know
Andrade
Adam,
fight?
you know Golovkin right now, he's
Yeah.
at the end of his career. What he's doing
Yeah.
is Golovkin's looking for a Canelo payday, or he's looking for a big fight. Andrade's not really a name, unfortunately, and the fight's not financially probably not as appealing to him as he's probably looking for. I personally think Golovkin
That doesn't
right
make
now.
sense,
I'm
though.
not saying in his prime, Golovkin fights anybody, and he would have fought Andrade in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I'm talking about
Golovkin
before.
proved that. But
Wait,
right
Christian.
now, I kind of agree with Christian in the sense that I'm not sure Golovkin really wants that fight, to be honest. I think he's looking
Another
for
thing-
a Canelo payday.
Sorry to cut you off. Another thing is that everyone's saying Golovkin's finished. I know he's old, don't get me wrong, but nothing's shown us that he's actually finished, apart from him not taking a big fight, really. Because I reckon he could, even right now, if he fought Andrade, I would reckon that'd be a close fight. I reckon he'd give Andrade a trouble.
I've said. I know Christian won't agree with this, and probably Rare Breed won't agree with this. That I actually think Golovkin beats those guys. But again, we need. But the thing is, I also agree with Christian. I think Golovkin right now is avoiding Andrade. Probably looks at him as a risk. And he also
Do you think
thinks
Canelo's
that
avoiding Andrade, Imran?
do I think Canelo's avoiding Andrade? No, I don't think. I think he'll fight Andrade. I think eventually that fight will happen. I think they're trying to build that up into some kind of super fight. I think eventually you will get that fight. It's too. I think Andrade has put himself in a great position that he's marketed himself. That I think there's a lot of people calling for that fight. So I think eventually, I think Canelo will. Here's the thing. For me, Beterbiev is a dangerous fight for Canelo. After he beats Plant, who's he going to fight? Benavidez is another guy that they think that could beat Canelo. Andrade is another guy that people want to see because of his style. And Charlo, really. I think these are the three guys. If Canelo goes and fights Beterbiev, then I haven't got a problem with that. But I think if Canelo's going to stay at 168, then I think Andrade, Charlo, and Benavidez are the fights that we want to see, right?
Yeah, definitely. One
Yeah.
more thing, don't you think Billy Joe's any good? Like Billy Joe's quality, man. He's unbeaten all that time.
I like Billy Joe. He's a
Domestic
good
level
fighter,
fighter.
but I think Andrade would have beaten Billy Joe. I think he's taller. I think he's bigger. I think he throws more combinations. I think he would have outpointed Billy Joe. Billy Joe's more of a single. He throws more single shots. Andrade throws fast combinations. He's a bit more spiteful as well. I don't think Andrade would have stopped Billy Joe because Billy Joe showed against Canelo he's got a good chin. But I think stylistically, when you make styles make fights, Andrade's taller. He's longer. He's got the longer reach. He throws faster combinations. I think he would have outpointed Billy Joe, and Billy Joe doesn't really have any power. You see, the thing is with a Golovkin fight, Golovkin has a lot of power, and Golovkin might be able to hurt Andrade. Do you know what I mean? So that's a dangerous fight because of that. What do you guys think, Christian Redbreed? What are your thoughts about Billy Joe and Andrade?
I mean, Andrade beats Billy Joe. It's not even close. Billy Joe, as you said, like Caleb Plant described him as an ABC 1-2-3 fighter, which is an acronym for saying all he does is throw a simple jab, an occasional cross left, and he uses his movement not to counter or to box, but more to escape. And that even showed up against Canelo. He didn't establish his jab. He didn't establish any combinations off his movement. It's very basic.
Yeah.
Makai, how are you? Makai? Redbreed, you were going to say something.
Yeah, and guys, and let's be real. Did you notice that Canelo, when he moved up to 168, all of a sudden wanted to all the belts after Benavidez lost his belt for what was it? Cocaine.
Good point.
Yep.
Good point.
He wasn't looking to. Yeah.
So you think Benavidez is a threat to Canelo? Then that means you think Benavidez has a good chance of beating him.
Absolutely. Benavidez is a dog.
What about his defense? He got a very poor defense. Christian, you pointed that out as well. Benavidez has got a really terrible defense.
He does, but he's got a chin, and he's willing to go in there to take a shot in order to give a shot.
But has he got the power, though? Has he got the power?
I think he does.
Yes.
I think he does.
He looks like a 175 pounder, or doesn't he? He doesn't look like a 168.
No. He's really I think he's really a light heavyweight.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is.
A big kid. He's got fast hands.
Yeah.
But he's flat-footed, Christian. He's flat-footed. Like, let's be honest. He's very flat-footed fighter.
But that's true. But like I said, if you're gonna go toe-to-toe with Canelo, you need power and you need a chin. He has both.
Yep.
Yeah, but we're not talking about Canelo's chin as well. Canelo's got a solid chin, I reckon. He took good punches from Golovkin.
Oh yeah, he does too. But,
and he's got much better head movement.
That's true. That's an advantage that he'll have against Benavidez. Is his upper torso movement in the pocket.
Yeah. I reckon Benavidez's chances are early, I reckon, because as the fight gets longer, Canelo will start hurting the body. Benavidez is open, he'll get hurt. Definitely, I reckon.
You know, it's interesting you brought up the body punching. You know, I'm surprised that no one yet has really tried to test Canelo to the body. And I suspect that might be one of Caleb Plant's plans is to go to the body. Because no one's attacked Canelo to the body. Give him a piece of his own medicine. And I think Andre Ward would do that. And I think Andre Ward would definitely go to Canelo's body if they were to fight.
Yeah, Andre Ward definitely, because he's got the power and the cleverness, the slickness to fight in the pocket as well, like in close up. But I don't think Caleb Plant's got the power to do that. He's gonna get hurt. I think even what everyone's saying that Andre Ward's gonna help Caleb Plant a lot, I don't reckon, because if he tells him, I think Caleb Plant shouldn't fight in the pocket at all, and he's gonna get hurt to the body. And even with Canelo's uppercuts are a bit underrated, I don't reckon he should fight in the pocket. To be honest, you gotta keep Canelo at range. Personally, I think that's my opinion.
Ray, what's going on?
How we doing? How we doing, gentlemen?
All good,
Hey,
man.
Ray.
All good.
Are you alright?
What's you've been hearing the conversation. You've been in the side. I know you've been listening to what we've been saying. What do you make of, firstly, Andre Ward coming in to help prepare Caleb Plant prepare for the Canelo fight? You've been hearing what we've been saying, everything. What do you make of everything being said?
Yeah, well, I've not got too long tonight, gents, because I got work tomorrow. But
Yeah.
break down what I've seen. So Andre Ward going and helping Caleb Plant, I think that's a great idea. He needs all the help he can get. Andre Ward is, a future Hall of Famer. Terrific fighter. He's a great pundit as well. He knows boxing inside out. I mean, we can all sit here and talk about how the guy's not been beat since he was just before a teenager, but he knows boxing. So any advice he can give Caleb Plant, who's a skilled boxer, but any additional soft intelligence he can give Caleb Plant is going to be really useful for him to take into the ring. I suppose there's one thing listening to it. It's whether you can put it into practice. You can lead that horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Hopefully, Caleb Plant takes it on board and give Canelo a good fight. Obviously, regarding the comments that you've made, I agree in a way that in order to beat, so I don't agree with what you were saying, Imran, that you need to be either a Mayweather or a Golovkin to beat Canelo. I think it's a bit too simplistic than that, because I was pointing out Kovalev was having success against Golovkin. I think people keep forgetting that.
Canelo, you mean Canelo?
Yeah, sorry, against Canelo. I think people keep forgetting that. I think you need to have a solid jab. Earlier on, I heard somebody say that Benavidez would be give Canelo a good fight and possibly beat Canelo. I don't think David Benavidez would beat Canelo. I think him and even Zurdo Ramirez will be there for the taking, because they're defensively wide open. They'll come forward, they'll throw shots, throw a lot of heavy shots, but they are very, very slow. And it's a bit strange how certain people can say that Beterbiev is too slow for Canelo, but all of a sudden Benavidez isn't. And Beterbiev hits harder than Benavidez ever would, to tell you quite frank. Obviously, with Christian coming on, the Andre discussion was going to be in there. He would give Canelo a fight. There's no doubt about that, because of his skill, because of his movement. But I can't see him winning that fight. I still can't see how he beats Golovkin.
Yeah, I can't either, Ray.
No, and I know Christian did say in the past he goes up to light heavy and he does a job on Beterbiev. He might do a job on some of the poorer light heavyweights, but not Beterbiev. There's something about Beterbiev. He's not active enough, but believe you me, when he cuts that ring down and he catches you, you're not getting up. I don't know anyone who's going to evade Beterbiev for 12 rounds.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Before Christian, I'll give you a chance to respond. I want to ask Ray a question. Ray, I made a video yesterday and I got criticized in the sense that I called Andre Ward an all-time great. Now, I actually look back and actually think Andre Ward is a Hall of Fame fighter, no doubt about it. But is he an all-time great? I don't know. What do you think, Ray?
Of course he is.
Would you put him in the same league as Sugar Ray Leonard, Hagler, and those guys?
The obvious thing is going to be, well, he I heard you say he didn't have the competition, but
no, yeah,
he beat it was the fashion everybody in.
Yes, I agree.
It's the same with Joe Calzaghe. It's the same with Joe Calzaghe. People say that Joe Calzaghe never really had the competition, but he emphatically dominated everybody that he was in with. It was only in the last two fights of his career, when he was very much past his best, he started to struggle, and he still came out with the victor. Ward arguably lost his first fight against Kovalev.
Yeah.
But he sure put it right in the second fight. For me, that's a sign of greatness. There are going to be some fighters where you can't always have that debate about their resume, where you can't always say, look, he didn't fight certain fighters, but then there's those guys that just don't have those dance partners. And just because they don't have the dance partners, it's unfair to say he can't be an all-time great.
I agree.
So yeah, some people are there because they've had the dance partners, but I think it's harsh to not call Andre Ward, who's shown everything but the skill set. He's shown character. He's shown actually he's come back from an arguable loss.
Yeah.
And he won the second fight emphatically, hands down. It's unfair to have a go at him and say he didn't have the dance partners. That's not his fault.
Yeah, true. Yeah, good points, Ray. Good points. Yeah, I think Andre Ward was a great fighter, great fighter. Just like I said, I think in that 168-pound division, the way he beat everybody was great. And if he had more, if he had more elite fighters, or if I don't think there was. I think you can make a case there probably wasn't any elite fighters in that 168 division. If there was more, I think you probably would have seen a more greater Andre Ward. If I'm honest.
Yeah, he struck me as the fighter that the better the opponent, the better he was.
Yeah.
All this talk about him. I remember Kessler when he beat Kessler. Kessler came out and did the interview in the Super Six and said, "Oh, he was a dirty fighter. He was a horrible."
Yeah. Yeah.
What he was doing there, Kessler, was a backhanded compliment to say everything I did, he just nullified. That again's a sign of a great fighter.
Froch did that as well. Froch said exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Those guys just weren't good enough, Ray. They weren't in his class. Do you know what I mean?
Andre Wood took away your strengths, and that's what I like about him. Whatever it was, whether it was a jab, whether it was a left hook, whether it was the right hand, whether it was the ability to move across the ring, Andre Wood always found a way, and he made adjustments in fights. So if you talk about when we looked at Jamal Charlo and Castano and we brought Jamal Charlo and we brought that one down, we all said that Jamal Charlo didn't make adjustments. If that was Andre Ward wouldn't have had that problem. Andre Ward always made adjustments. He was what I call a cerebral boxer. He was a thinker in there. He was very difficult to pin and put under pressure. Because he was always two or three steps ahead of his opponent.
Yeah,
you look back at his fights, he was never more than 2 rounds down consecutively. Some fighters they lose like 3-4 rounds in a row. No, not with Andre Ward, because he's figured you out. He's figured out what you're doing. He's figured out your patterns, your rhythms, your timing. He was class.
Raymond, mind if I ask you a question?
Yeah, fire away.
Okay. If Canelo beats Caleb Plant, do you think Ward will come out of retirement to fight Canelo?
That's a good question. I think because
what are your thoughts?
Sorry.
What are your thoughts on that? I kind of think that might be that might be in the works.
You see, Andre Ward's a man of God, isn't he? And he's a man of his word, and he said that he won't come out. So I don't think he's cut the same cloth as, say, Floyd Mayweather and other boxers. I kind of think he genuinely means he won't come out of retirement. Personally, would I want to see him come out because he was so good? Yeah. I think you retired young, you could still cut it, but
he'll get beat, Ray. He'll get beat, Ray, against Canelo right now. There's no way I can see him beating Canelo. Too strong for him right now.
I mean, he's what now? It depends.
37, I think. Was he 36, 37?
36, 37. Yeah, I mean, yeah, potentially, because Canelo's be the busier fighter, fresher fighter. But I don't think he'll come back out. I think he's a man of his word. He's a man of God. I think he's made his decision and he'll stick to it.
Yeah, I don't think he should, because here's the thing. I think if he does come out of retirement, Christian, he will get beat right now. I wouldn't pick him to beat Canelo. Like, even in his prime, so to speak, that would have been a tough fight for him. Wouldn't have been easy, But now you can't fight Canelo not when you're not at your best. You've been inactive. You ain't fought for 4 years.
But the thing is, Imran, if you to go back hypothetically and say if Andre Ward was still fighting at his prime. I mean, if he fought Canelo at light heavyweight, it would have been a completely different fight as opposed to if he fought him. This is what I'm saying to you earlier about fighting Canelo at super middleweight and then fighting him at light heavyweight. Take away a lot of Canelo's advantages if you had the extra £7.
Yeah, because he's a naturally bigger man, isn't he, Ward?
Yeah.
But I don't. This is what I'm saying, Ray. Even in their primes, if you put Andre Ward at 168, just say that fight happens at 168, right? Andre, that would have been a tough fight for Ward because, like I said, Ward never fought anybody at 168 at that kind of level, at the level that Canelo's at right now, and as good as Canelo, I think you'd agree with that. That he never really fought anybody as good as Canelo Alvarez at 168, and that would have been a tough fight for Andre Ward in his prime. So now you take a guy that hasn't fought for 4 years competitively, and you put him in with Canelo, who's an absolute monster right now, in the peak of his powers. You can't really, that would probably be one of the greatest wins ever, like one of the greatest comebacks ever if he was to pull that off.
Probably, it probably would be. But then again, don't forget, you tell me who Canelo's fought that's been on the same level as Andre Ward.
Yeah. I'd agree. Only Mayweather really, and he got beat in that fight, didn't he?
Yeah. And I think if he was to fight Andre Ward would be looking to adopt a similar approach to that fight as what Mayweather adopted. It would be pretty much single shots, hit, move, tuck up, hold them when you can, move again, always keep Canelo moving. That's what he'd be looking. So Canelo's always having to reset. That's what he'd be looking to do, Andre Ward. And Andre Ward, to be fair, he can follow a game plan as good as everybody I've ever seen in a boxing ring.
But I think Canelo's boxing IQ. I think Canelo's very underappreciated, Ray. His boxing IQ, his defense. Like Canelo's got all of that as well, and he's got more. He's got Canelo right now. We're not looking at the same guy that Mayweather beat. It's a completely different Canelo Alvarez.
He's improved. I agree, he's improved. But what I would just say there is Andre Ward was already started at an A, and he just keep getting better and better and better and better. Canelo didn't start that way at all. He had to really work to get to where he was. But Andre Ward started like that. So if anything, you see Canelo, I know some people underrate Canelo. Some people don't like him. But Andre Ward, I even feels even more underappreciated than what Canelo is.
Yeah, but
think about it. Canelo's more accomplished than Andre Ward when you think about it. Well, look at what he's done, and look at what he's done. 4-weight division world champion. He's about to become undisputed. Ward was never undisputed at 168. I know he was the best, but Canelo's about, like, if he beats Plant, which I know you think he will, Canelo's beat better fighters than Andre Ward. Let's be real. Like he's fought a lot of tough competition. You know that, Ray.
Yeah, but I was saying about 5-10 minutes ago, that's not Andre Ward's fault.
Oh yeah, it's not his fault, but you've got to factor that into it when we're talking about who's going to go down a greater fighter. Canelo will go down a greater fighter than Andre Ward. He's already achieved more.
No,
really.
The difference between Ward is that Ward fought everyone in his division. Canelo historically has been avoiding certain fighters from 154 to 160. And he's still avoiding those fighters. And until he fights those fighters, his career is incomplete, in my opinion.
But Christian, his career is not completed yet.
He didn't fight one in his division.
Go on, Mackay. What are you saying? Go on. What are you saying about Ward?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Mackay?
Yeah, Ward.
Listen,
he didn't fight everyone in his division.
Who didn't he fight?
Well, he won the Super 6, didn't he?
Oh, I don't know what's going on with Mackay, but yeah. Sorry, what were you saying, guys?
He won the Super 6 tournament.
He did.
Real quick. Where did this narrative that Canelo has improved so much since Mayweather? He hasn't really fought a similar fighter to a Mayweather since then, except maybe Lara.
Thank you.
And he arguably lost that fight.
Yeah, but
in my
how long
opinion.
ago was the Lara fight, though? See, this is what I mean. You're bringing something up that was 7-8 years ago.
Lara fight was same time.
Ever since
That don't make sense.
he's been fighting flat-footed European fighters ever since.
Oh, come
Stationary
on.
target.
You can tell in the ring that Canelo's learned a lot.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Not all the European fighters Canelo's fought have been flat-footed.
Not all of them, but most of them.
So that when you're talking about notions, and where these ideas,
Yeah, come on, I don't.
Where's that
Just
from? That
European
the
fighters.
European flat-footed. Where's that come from? To
Well,
answer
like
talking about Canelo, you can tell Canelo's made improvement. You can't tell me the head movement Canelo's got now when he was the same head movement he had before.
Thank you.
Actually, it was. If you watch that Mosley,
No, it wasn't.
If you watch the Trout fight and the Mosley fight before he fought Mayweather, he was doing the very same head movements. He's always had that in his repertoire.
No, it was no way as near as sharp as that. His body punching was nowhere near as sharp as what it is now.
And his body, because is got much better, and the confidence. You can see in the ring he's much more composed. He's not panicky. You can tell that he knows he can change the fight.
But the fact is, for years since the Lara fight, he's been avoiding a particular style, and I'm talking about the American style of slickness. He's been avoiding it. Look at his resume after Lara. It's the same type of fighter. Guys who are there in the pocket, there to be hit. Guys who don't have a good control over range.
He's fighting planned now because you rate planned.
Yeah, finally until now.
But
we find out
don't
really.
understand what you mean
I'm
by
getting
like
tired of hearing this European.
What's this American style of stick?
In a stick Cuban fighter, or a slip fighter from the UK, or slip fighter from Pakistan.
He's talking about that Cuban style, Floyd Mayweather pro vertical style.
But what's the difference? Because there seems to be, a nationalist view. Slick boxers.
There is a difference between the way Lara fights and Mayweather fights. Lara is more defensive off his movement. Mayweather throws more combinations off his movement. Lara just basically mostly pot shots. He's much more defensive off the back foot.
That's between the boxers. You said American style.
The American style, like Pernell Whitaker, Floyd Weather, that type of slickness, where they'll make you miss and they'll pot shot combinations off the miss, off the movement.
Those are all time